So we are now completely abstaining from sugar. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's not a bad idea at all. The results are stark, and no, you can still enjoy, snack, and go out for a delicious meal. Nowadays, everything is really full of sugar. Industrial sugar is a very important word here. Anyway, let's start with the fact that sugar is not a poison per se. And sugar can actually be a really good thing. Sugar is important for us, and hypoglycemia would, of course, be something bad. But the problem here is different. So, have you ever stood in a supermarket? Probably yes. And this or similar sentences once thought, what am I supposed to eat here? There's too much sugar everywhere. This is industrial sugar, especially when looking at the ingredients of many ready-made products. And it is sobering. And often there are a lot of hidden sugars in such products. For sure, it's really unhealthy for us. So that, I think, is reason enough to do without sugar from now on. Let's take a look at whether we are doing our bodies any good and what happens during the changeover. And when I talk about doing without, which is also important, it means not having to suffer, but eating more consciously, so to speak. Hello, my name is Dr. Tobias Weigel, and with my YouTube channel, I would like to make a contribution to providing medically understandable and correct information about health and diseases, but also about nutrition, because ultimately everything is very closely related. If you don't want to miss anything, subscribe to my channel now. Sugar is a sweet-tasting food, and we primarily associate this food with sweets. Each gram of sugar contains 4 kilocalories, and in Europe alone, we consume almost 30 million tons of sugar every year. That's a lot. And in Germany, we consume just under 34 kilos per capita every year. So we consume 34 kilos of pure sugar. From now on, we completely abstain from sugar and supposedly do something good for our bodies and health. Avoiding sugar the first week. But of course, all beginnings are difficult. The first week, and for many people even a few days beyond that, our body will demand the sugar. So the first week will be really difficult. This is comparable to withdrawal symptoms because sugars or carbohydrates, and sugars are short-chain carbohydrates, are the most favorite source of energy for our body. Why? Because they are easily degradable, they are quickly available, and provide a lot of energy immediately, which then protects us from starvation. And the urge to eat, so to speak, is quickly satisfied. Great in evolutionary terms, but in fact useless nowadays, as we are no longer really threatened by starvation, at least in Europe. Therefore, we can eliminate sugar without substitution. And by that, I mean additional sugar. On the first day, without sugar, however, nothing happens in the body. Our metabolism needs a bit of time. Our metabolism needs to adjust to the new situation. Actually, many of us are guaranteed to have gone whole days without sugar. Fasting days are an example of something you might practice from time to time. And your body doesn't immediately demand more energy on these fasting days. However, after a week or so, things start to look very different, because that's when our body starts to change. Accordingly, our metabolism also changes. You might notice the first positive changes within 3 to 4 days. However, your body will increasingly demand fresh sugar. That's what the body still does. The keyword is addiction. On the other hand, our metabolism improves, and for many of us, our blood sugar levels improve unnoticed. Without a lot of quickly available sugar, our blood sugar levels remain relatively stable. And that is super valuable for our health. And that is really important for our health. The unhealthy thing is when the blood sugar level rises extremely high and then falls extremely low again. As I have already mentioned, sugar causes the value to skyrocket, and the body reacts to this with increased insulin production. And sooner or later, this causes an increase in insulin resistance. And then this can lead to diabetes. So that's the reason we automatically relieve our bodies and systems when we don't consume sugar. Avoiding a large amount of sugar consumption is one of the most efficient ways of preventing diabetes. Avoiding sugar product consumption also causes us to sleep more deeply and restfully, for example. And maybe we have already lost a little weight, of course, because we have almost automatically naturally eaten fewer calories. At the same time, your breath becomes fresher. This is also known because without sugar, the oral bacteria have less food, the oral bacteria multiply less, and in this way they provide less bad breath. And the same thing applies to problems with the intestines, because the intestinal bacteria also need sugar. How do things look after a month? By now, after a month at the latest, you will notice that the first trousers should already fit very widely. If we start from the 34 kilos of sugar per capita that I mentioned at the beginning, we come to just under 100 grams of pure sugar that we consume every day. And that really is quite a lot, because that means 400 kilocalories. 1 gram of sugar has 4 kilocalories, and 100 grams of sugar has 400 kilocalories, which we have saved during a month. 1 kilogram of body fat has about 7,000 kilocalories. So in 30 days, we have already lost almost 2 kilos of body fat. That should be noticeable, and that should be a good reason to avoid sugar. Another advantage is a clearer complexion because without sugar, pimples, acne, and impurities decrease, and at the same time, the skin becomes more elastic. Also, at the doctor, if you go there and have your blood count determined, the values should look better. Stable blood sugar levels, as I mentioned earlier, protect our heart and make it beat more calmly. And your blood pressure also remains stable within a very healthy range. And that, together with the weight loss, of course, ensures a fitter, but above all, a healthier overall condition. Because that is the main goal. If you are particularly attentive, you may even notice in this first month that your sense of taste becomes a completely different aspect. Your sense of taste, namely, becomes finer. This is exactly what patients or other people often report after about a month of avoiding sugar product consumption. The lack of this extreme taste of sugar, which is basically an extreme taste, the lack of this extreme sweetness ensures that we can taste the normal fruit sweetness again. A year without sugar. What it brings? So, what will happen if we avoid sugar consumption for a year? In principle, that is a good goal. Now let's jump a little bit in the time of 12 months. Because in the next few months, little by little, up to this 1 year, further advantages often appear unnoticed. The craving, or rather the addiction to sugar, should be over by then. But of course, the short cravings for something sweet might appear to you again and again. It has a kind of rebound effect from time to time, but that also depends on the environment, for example. This is also known from smokers who have quit, but here we mean strong physical cravings for sugar, and now these cravings have gone for good. So they should be gone for good after 5, 6, 7, or 8 months. And now you are able to enjoy it to the full. That's the good thing about the health benefits of giving up sugar products in the long term. With the help of a study, let's take a closer look and discover what health advantages are. And for example, this study from the year 2021 confirms something that actually sounds almost unbelievable to me. It says that cutting out sugar alone can reduce our premature mortality risk by 34%. That's a lot. In other words, this means that sugar consumption directly and measurably increases our risk of death. This industrial sugar, which is found in fast food and in sweets, for example, which is then directly 34%. However, cutting out sugar product consumption has an even clearer effect on 3 other areas. And these areas are not negligible. If we give up sugar, the risk of morbid obesity is reduced by 57%. And that's so because sugar is pure calories, fast food, as I said, sweet plonk, sweet drinks. The risks of diabetes, heart failure by the way, these are also decreasing, namely by 42 and 47% respectively. So also a lot, almost 50%. And in a society, that is in our society, in which both diseases represent an ever-increasing burden for those affected and of course for the healthcare system, we should certainly do our utmost to minimize the risk for ourselves. Better mood and less inflammation. So, now there are 3 specific advantages for you. First, more energy. This advantage sounds wrong at first, but it can be explained quite logically. I have already told you sugar gives you energy. But over time, if we give up sugar, will we have more energy? Many people know that sugar is actually full of energy, as I said. That's why too much sugar makes you fat quickly. This excess energy is stored, and it forms our fat deposit. However, sugar has a negative side effect, and that is the important thing. The blood sugar level comes high, as I mentioned. The blood sugar level rises to an almost intoxicating level, and then it quickly subsides. And this process is naturally followed by a kind of mild hangover, specifically when the blood sugar level is too low. And as I said, sugar consists of simple carbohydrates as opposed to, for example, whole grain products and spelt. And the simple sugar is broken down very quickly. So if sugar is consumed regularly, this leads to an effect that is comparable to riding a roller coaster, for example. Another advantage of doing without sugar is a better mood, because giving up sugar or sugar substitutes has a direct positive effect on our bodies and health. Sugar increases the effects of stress, and sugar may even promote anxiety disorders. And this study from 2019 has found and confirmed it. Actually, it's very ironic in a way that a lot of people still somehow believe the marketing fairy tale. You have to call it that. The fairy tale about chocolate or other sweet snacks as mood enhancers, which is what is said again and again. But in the long term, sugar even increases the risk of depression. And at this point, At the latest, we really should take a more critical look at what we are doing to our bodies and health. What we are actually doing when we constantly stuff them full of sugar products. So less sugar means and equals a better mood. Not immediately, but in the medium term. And I can now use this advantage as a good example to show you and explain the damage that sugar can cause. Our bodies react to sugar by producing certain substances, and these specific substances are known as ages. Ages promote inflammation. And just like an increased cholesterol level, for example, ages are the result of our body having to break down sugar. And inflammatory processes in our bodies are actually one of the main triggers for many diseases and age-related problems. The consequences are diseases such as Alzheimer's, as well as dementia, chronic pain. There are permanent inflammations, also food allergies. So now you know that less sugar means more energy, a better mood, and less inflammation. Beware of traps. In order to ensure that our sugar-free diet works, we shouldn't just flush all sugar down the toilet. That is not enough. That's the impression the video has made so far, and I hope that some people will still watch it now. In fact, there are quite a lot of foods that contain hidden sugars. And of course, the industry is constantly finding and developing new ways or methods to hide sugar in the ingredient lists of the products. I would bet that in every kitchen, even in my kitchen of course, we will find ingredients or products that contain a surprising amount of sugar, and where I also say crass, I didn't know that at all. I wasn't even aware that it was such a sugar bomb. And now I will quickly introduce a few of these products so that you can get a feel for where you should be careful in the supermarket. Low-fat fruit yogurt, but it does not have the reputation of being particularly harmful to health. And of course, in many households, low-fat fruit is also somehow included as a small snack. You might eat this for dessert, but I suggest you think about that, because even such a small cup of this kind of yogurt can contain up to 24 grams of sugar. There really is quite a lot in there. And the German Nutrition Society, for example, recommends a maximum of 50 grams of sugar a day, so actually there's not much left over after a yogurt. The low-fat label in particular is deceptive, as the yogurts may have slightly less fat, but at the same time, they are often even more sugary. So throw them out, and of course the same applies to canned food. These are all sugar bombs that immediately hit your hips and therefore your health. Alcohol, of course, is also full of sugar, because this is exactly what is responsible for the alcohol content in the drink. So the list of these foods is quite long, and if you really want to completely avoid industrial sugar, that is an extreme challenge. I doubt whether that is actually feasible. Anyway, then you don't have much choice but to deal with it intensively for a few weeks and ultimately avoid the supermarket as much as possible, at least with all ready products. But the advantages are obvious, and you will quite quickly get used to the new diet. So eat consciously, and that is the key word here. If you don't want to give up your usual sweetness, at least in the beginning, I can also recommend some sweetener sugar alternatives. Please feel free to comment on the video and perhaps write your tips on how you deal with sugar. Whether you pay attention to how much sugar you eat per day, whether you used to eat more. Thank you and stay loyal to me.